I'm Lauren with Pack Hacker, and in this video we're taking a detailed look at the Away Outdoor Backpack 26 liter, which I've been testing for the last 2 weeks. Let's dive in. Based off of the name, it's pretty obvious that this is what they describe as their outdoor backpack. So there's a couple different features along this bag that kind of point toward that, and we'll just kind of get into them right now, actually. So with this material here, this is a shell. This is a lightweight, abrasion-resistant, 100% recycled polyester. So you can see it kind of looks like a TPU, which is like more of a thick tarp, very durable material. This is not that. It's definitely abrasion resistant. Like you can see, I mean, I've got some like blemishes around here. Actually, that might have just been dirt, to be quite honest, but the bag itself is holding up well. It's got that material on the bottom also, so it does give a little bit of like resistance here, and I haven't had any issues throughout my testing, but I definitely wouldn't call this, for a couple of different reasons, I wouldn't necessarily call this like an outdoor backpack. When you think outdoor backpack, you think something that's like very rugged, that you want to be able to kind of like throw around, and I wouldn't necessarily do that with this, mostly because this is a very thin material, so it's not very thick, obviously, but whatever's in here is not going to be quite as protected, especially on like this bottom here, just because there's no like padding or anything there. So if you want like more of an outdoor aesthetic but don't necessarily want to do a bunch of rugged things, then this is probably a good option for you. We also have some like well, they're not really necessarily grab handles, they're like lash points across here. So we have like attachment points. We have 2 up top. This is all seam, that's the whole seam, and then we have 2 on the bottom. These don't expand or anything, so you can't like attach like a yoga mat or something on the bottom, but they say you could attach like keys. I personally wouldn't leave my keys hanging on the outside of my bag, but if that's something that you're into, that is definitely an option. These I just didn't find super functional. I think this is more of like outdoor bags usually have attachment points on the outside, and so they kind of gave them that. So that's kind of what it feels like for me. But otherwise, like the aesthetic of this thing is pretty basic. I think it almost looks like if like someone who really only does like business casual things went outdoors, like it kind of reminds me of that. The zippers themselves are unbranded. They have these like kind of plasticky pulls, and the actual zipper track itself is plasticky as well, which I'm not a huge fan of, honestly. I think with these, they just feel very cheap, I guess is really the only way to put it. And I feel like with this, I mean, you can hear how loud that is to open. It just doesn't really feel very premium, especially for a brand like Away, who kind of, puts a lot of pride into their bags, or to their rolling luggage rather. And I've tested other Away bags that don't have those same zippers, so don't really love that. But otherwise, the outside of this thing is pretty simple, just like a top grab handle here, and then some water bottle pockets, which we'll get into in a second, but the Away logo is pretty subtle on the side. So pretty subtle backpack, just not really necessarily an outdoor backpack, I'd say. This harness system is pretty basic as well. We just have 2 carry straps that are, I mean, they're like lightly padded. I wouldn't say they're like extra padded. This material is, it's a pretty rough mesh material. I wouldn't say that it's like scratchy, but I have a sunburn right now and I would not want to put this on by any means. And then we also have the back panel, which is made of the same material. This luggage pass-through is pretty handy. I was able to use this one. It worked perfectly fine. And it is a little bit thicker because there's a hidden pocket, which I'll show you in a second. But one of the biggest gripes that I had with this backpack was that this adjustment slips out of place super often. So you can see this loop here. I didn't do that. I actually had it here, and every time I set down the bag, I guess you can kind of see it when I just push on it. So it's like I set the bag down, because it's not super structured. This Duraflex, this is a Duraflex adjuster, which actually we have very, very good luck with Duraflex adjusters, very quality. I think it's more of how this strap, like what this strap is, maybe it's like a misfit, something like that. But basically, like if I just very lightly like push on this, you can see it start to just sort of slowly feed its way through here. And then when I go and pick up the backpack, it cinches tight, but with more length adjustment. So I find myself needing to adjust this on the fly very, very often, which I'll show you what it looks like when I put it on in a second. So this is the bag when it's on my back. I really just generally didn't like how this carried. These straps, like I mentioned, they're like minimally padded. They're decent. They don't feel like they're too wide on me or anything, but they're just not really that comfortable. And I actually stuffed a bunch of stuff in this bag. I think I got like a couple days worth of travel clothes in here. And this thing was heavy, like it was heavy, and it was really uncomfortable to carry. Like I think I was able to get like 3 or 4 days worth of clothing in here, and it just really felt like it was dragging me down. I also felt like this back panel padding was not substantial enough to actually give me any support. Plus, I can sort of feel that luggage pass through poking through, and then in addition to that, my laptop on the inside as well, I can sort of feel pressing into my back too. So in general, just didn't really find this super comfortable. That on top of like, it doesn't slip out of adjustment when I have it actually on, but the fact that I would put the backpack on and it would basically be like this. And I was always like, what is happening? And I would be pulling it up and pulling it up and pulling it up, and it made me a little bit crazy. But once you get it like fit and adjusted, once it's on you, it fits okay. Aesthetically is not really my favorite, just a little bit floppy, but I think the carry comfort is really sort of the deal breaker for me here. If you're finding this video helpful, hit subscribe so we can keep making content to help you travel smarter. But for now, we're going to look at the organization in this thing. So starting right out the gate here, you're gonna see this water bottle pocket, which I've had, a water bottle in here the whole time. This is just a simple mesh pocket. This is a 32-ounce water bottle, which is what it says is like the max you can fit. I would definitely agree with that. There's some stitching here to keep that elastic from like stretching out too much. But it feels nice and secure. Like if I turn this upside down and give it a shake, it's not really going anywhere. However, smaller bottles start to feel a little bit looser in there, especially when this bag isn't packed out all the way. So you can see when I took that big water bottle out, there's so much space left over. And if your water bottle doesn't fill all of that space, then it's just gonna be a little bit too loose. So that's something to keep in mind. You do have 2 of those though. They work well enough, right? You can also put your water bottle in the backpack if you're feeling it. In terms of other storage, we'll do the back panel first. So back here, we have a hidden pocket. This is like a little security pocket, so you can put a passport or something in here. I have a passport size notebook, so that kind of gives you an idea there, but it's the entire length of this luggage pass through. So if I stick my hand in here, my fingers are right over here. And with me, I just feel like I would lose things in here. Like if this, if you get your passport and it goes all the way there, like that's just kind of annoying to have to get to it. It is nice though, a lot of these kinds of hidden pockets are very small or very shallow. So if your items don't fit, that's kind of annoying. So it's nice to have the option. But like anything lumpy that you put in here will definitely kind of shift over to that side. So something to keep in mind, but definitely good for like security if that's something that you're concerned about. We also have on the other side here, we have a laptop compartment. So I have a 13-inch MacBook Pro in here. When I put this in, you can see even as the zipper is extended all the way through the pocket, it's not really very easy to get it in perfectly. Like you have to arrange it perfectly in order to fit the 13-inch in there. They say it fits up to a 15-inch. So in that case, you're gonna have to kind of slide it in at an angle. That's not really a huge deal for me. The biggest thing is that one, because there's no like structured back panel, your laptop becomes the back panel. And the other thing is that there's no false bottoms. So down here, my fingers are touching the very bottom of the bag, which means that when you set this backpack down, your laptop is going to hit the ground, which we don't love. We like to see a like elevated laptop compartment. So I don't love that, but it does make it easier to get to your device instead of rather in like the main compartment. But that one's pretty simple. And then we also have this front pocket. So this one I just really don't like those zippers. This one here has a little bit of organization in it. We've got like 2 pockets and then 1 bigger slip pocket. This bigger slip pocket, I actually just have a sling in here. I was traveling this weekend, took this backpack, and when I was done, when I was going, I just kind of shoved my sling in there, and then when I got to where I was going, I put the sling on. But when I wasn't bringing the sling in there, this is basically where I would dump tiny items. So I would have my, keys in one, because I'm not putting them on the outside. And then I would have, in here I have eye drops, I have lotion. I would also put like headphones or something in here. It does have some storage down at the base here. You can see if I open that up, it's, I guess you can see it kind of from here. Let's say it's like here to maybe the front of the bag. So if you want to put like extra clothing layers or something like that in there, it's really nice. But I found more so that things would get lost down at the bottom of the bottom compartment, on top of the fact that these pockets here, they're just kind of like loose and open. I didn't feel like anything I put in there was very secure. So all of the small items, if they slipped out of this pocket, they just go down to the bottom. So I didn't love that. This pocket here does have a little bit of elevation, so it technically does have like a false bottom, but it's too small for a device, so, or too small for like a laptop or something. So that's something to keep in mind. But you do have a decent amount of storage in this front compartment and a little bit more organization for tiny items. As for the main compartment, it's very similar. It just opens kind of in that like top lid opening that you see in like a lot of backpacks. And so remember what this organization looks like here. When you open up this main compartment, and I'm just gonna pull out these packing cubes, that is it, right? So all of this organization for those small items is just in this front pocket, which is what I was saying with that sort of like looseness and those tiny items that I felt would just kind of slip out. That's where those were. So I would definitely utilize like pouches or cubes or things like that if you're going to be using this bag, just so that you don't lose those small items. But in this main compartment, it's just fully open. You can just kind of pack it as you please. We also have this back laptop compartment, same deal as the hidden one in the back. So this fits up to a 15-inch. This is a 16-inch laptop though, so you can see even though it's rated for a 15-inch, it can fit a larger one, and it fits in there nice and easy with room to spare. But you can see this is also very loose. So it just kind of felt like, I guess the best way to describe this bag is that all around, it just feels very loose and very floppy. Like the outside material, if this bag isn't completely packed to the brim, just kind of looks floppy. With these pockets here, unless the whole bag is packed out and these are pulled like completely taut, that's a little bit floppy. And then you have this back compartment here, that's also kind of floppy. And so I found myself just sort of like not really loving how it looked by the time I got everything in there. And also by the time I got everything in here, it just didn't really feel like it was like helping me organize my gear, which if you love cubes and pouches and you really don't like built-in organization, then this is gonna be great for you. Especially like if you do use this as they kind of named it, which is for like an outdoor bag. This is 26 liters. Like this is a good amount of space. I mean, I could definitely use this as a personal item for like a weekend trip to go visit a friend and have like room to spare basically, just because of how big it is. But I would say, you know, the biggest drawback for me would be that sort of like floppiness look to it, and that carry comfort I actually is probably the biggest disadvantage, just because when this gets heavy, it gets really heavy and it's just not comfortable to wear. Like I found myself actively wishing I could like take it off and like get a break. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. But I think like in terms of aesthetic, you know, if this is your vibe, then I think it's, you know, pretty sleek, classic, which is what Away does well. I think the carry comfort just could have been a little bit upgraded for me personally.